is happening, fellow fantasy GMs? I am JJ Wang. He is the bearded one, DJ Dub. And with our powers combined, we are the Fantasy Couriers.
Well, JJ Wang, we are. Golly, I just finished school, so there should be some good courier stuff coming through. I'm gonna have some time on my hands, getting stuff together. This is when big courier stuff, working on the website. School finished, got to pack up some stuff, but it's summertime for us school people and all you parents now. Your kid's been home for what, a week now?
Yeah, it's been about a week. I think this would be the second week. So yeah, I mean this is when the you're always coming up with new stuff every podcast. Well, hey, I did this, and this, and this. I'm like, man, you do got a lot of time. Like I said,
when you don't have to
go
to
all
work.
summer free, man.
Yeah, throughout the rest of the year, I'm like, if I can get to the podcast times, I'm happy. You've been carrying us this spring. I'm like, hey, what do you got? So you've been rolling us.
And if you're relying on me carrying you,
we're in trouble.
It's going to be for a bumpy ride, my friend.
So there's fun stuff coming down the Couriers pipeline. I'm going to update the website, so it's fantasycouriers.com. I bought the domain. We're good to go. There's some stuff on there already. Rankings, I got half of my Dynasty rankings up there. Redraft rankings should be up in the next couple of weeks, if not a week or so. We're also going to be doing an interview for Fantasy Turf Wars on Thursday. We'll post that when it goes live. It's going to be 64 teams, four different brackets that come down, two teams in the playoffs. Hopefully we can beat out some of the people we're competing against. There's like a professional model in there. There's some podcasters, some writers, some sportscasters, people from all over different jobs. I just got my buddy Julius Adams in there. He's a gospel singer that I interviewed for my church podcast. And him and I talked for like an hour after the interview. I messaged him. I knew that they were looking for some people. I said, dude, do you do fantasy football? He's like, yeah, I like that. I said, hold on a second. Would you like to get into this thing? Because it's the whole goal of it isn't really football. It is football's the fun way. And the group is just trying to promote like small time, like podcasts or businesses and stuff. So, if all works out, he's going to be in our division. So maybe I'll get him even come on our show. Like he looks like a linebacker. Dude is giant. He's a good dude. That should be exciting. They're going to not ask us for any expertise. They're just going to be like, who are you? What's going on? And we're just going to shoot the breeze for a while and become Facebook famous, YouTube famous to about 35 people. I don't know how big this could be. I really have no clue. Just something fun we've never co-managed.
I mean, this is where everything kind of starts, right? I mean, more people know you. That's how it all goes from. But yeah, you do a great job communicating. You're definitely the communicator out of the bunch. I just fill in some random time from here to there. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we could probably have a lot of these guys on our show or ladies at any point in time. I mean, a different voice, a different opinion is always fun. I can always tell somebody else they're wrong. It's not that bad.
They'll probably tell us wrong. So also everybody keep us in your pray to the fantasy gods. We are entered. Hopefully one of these years we'll get an entry into the Scott Fish Bowl. That'll be really cool. That's like the grand poobah of all like fantasy.
That's what I hear.
I mean, we're entered to have a chance. So it's a matter. Some years they pull through names, and of course we're the peon. So it'll be a while till we get a chance. We have to be some of the lucky ones. But maybe one of these years we'll get in. Our buddy West got in the other year. He's in some of our threads. He got in just by lottery or something. I was like, oh, cool. So maybe one day. So news this week, couple of news. Literally, if y'all want to know when we record, Darren Waller is going to retire. Seems like he's been retired for a while, but Darren Waller is going to retire.
I mean, it's like I was saying to one of my friends earlier. I mean, after listening to that rap video or that video that he made, he had no choice but to retire. I mean, he's going to get made so much fun of on the football field with this video. I mean, he had no choice. But yeah, I mean, he was already going to retire. But if you haven't had a chance to see the video,
I haven't. I was like,
you should definitely watch the video. It's pretty good.
He's had a rough year. Isn't he getting divorced too?
Yeah, that's what the song is about. He's divorced. Okay. He was married to Kelsey Plum, the WNBA player. Yeah. Shout outs to the WNBA. They got their name in the news all over the place. So it only took 30 years, but hey, I think they finally got their name in the mainstream.
Well, you just got to beat up on the new rookie. That's all you got to do to get in the mainstream, is it?
I guess. It's very interesting.
So with him leaving, Basically, there's two names. I mean, there's a bunch of names on the depth chart currently. Like ESPN already has him off their depth chart. He probably was never there. But Daniel Bellinger came in last year. People thought, hey, that's going to be the heir apparent. Could be pretty good. Then Theo Johnson's jumping in this year to supposedly a big body guy that could fill in there. Do you feel if you're, I mean, we're talking tight end to maybe, probably tight end, but if you had to take a Giants tight end to set, or Dynasty getting ready, I mean, redraft, probably none of them. But if you were setting one onto your Dynasty roster, would you get the rookie or the second year guy?
That's a tough question. I think I would go. I think I would go Bellinger. I just think Bellinger coming in, I feel like he was talked
Yeah.
about a lot as being like one of the top tight ends. And as far as Theo Johnson goes, I mean, I've heard a lot. I feel like I've heard a lot more negatives about Theo Johnson than I ever heard about Daniel Bellinger until he got in the NFL. And then you kind of started hearing a bunch of more negative stuff. But I think the opportunity is there for Bell. I think Bellinger's would be more of the blocking tight end. So I feel like he would get on the field a little more in the beginning.
Ginormous.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like he'd get on the field there in the beginning. So I'd probably go Bellinger right now.
Hey, did you know Theo Johnson's Canadian, eh?
No, right?
But yes, I mean, with what they got, they really have one wide receiver, so they might both get to play. I mean, put two big guys on the corner, let Singletary run through the middle, and Daniel Jones run behind him. I mean, they might both get to play. I like them both big. I, they're both cheap or almost free, so you pick your dart throw. I liked Bellinger coming in last year, but I'm reading more and more like good stuff about Johnson. So I might lean Johnson just to be contrarian a little bit, see what
But
happens.
you also got to understand you're going to hear a lot of good stuff about a lot of people right now.
Oh, everybody, yeah, it's hype preseason.
So, I mean, everybody is awesome at this point in the season. So, yeah, I mean, you love to hear this kind of stuff, saying, positive things coming out of camp, but I mean, it's tough. I mean, like I said, I could go either way. I mean, I would definitely take a shot on Theo Johnson. I would at least put him on my taxi squad, see where it went.
100%. I had Sam Laporta on a team on Taxi Squad last year. My tight end was so good. I was like, dang, that's a great year to have. So the other one, a Miami Dolphins player got the bag of cash, and it wasn't the quarterback. It was Jalen Waddle. Apparently, they're trying to tell him you are going to be the successor to Tyreek Hill. I pulled up his stats versus his finances here, but I believe it was he's like the fifth highest receiver.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
It was it's a high $84.75 million extension, 3-year extension. So that gets him through 2028. I mean, they'd be foolish. The kid looks good. He was down because Tyreek was just so up last year. He still was getting. I mean, he still had 104 targets last year, 14.1 yards per reception. So does that, as a dynasty owner, make you feel better? Or are you still like, he falls so far because Tyreek's getting everything?
I mean, it makes me feel a little better that he's going to be there, a few more years in that offense. So that's a positive. But I mean, how much longer is Tyreek going to play? I mean, is there an extension coming from Tyreek for Tyreek? I mean, who knows? But I mean, getting paid, the fifth, sixth most money in the NFL, you've got to be able to see more than 104 targets.
That's what he needs.
So he needs way more. Being paid that much, I feel like he's got to be involved. I mean, this guy's got to be getting 130 targets, I feel like.
He had 140 the first year and set the rookie record for the receptions.
That's where he needs to be. And being paid this much money, I would feel like that's where he needs to be.
And he's got to stay healthy. I mean, this year he only played 14 games. So if he can get from 14 up to the 17 games, that might get him up there. But what his problem is, he's been single-digit touchdowns, 6, 8, and 4. So that can't happen for him. I mean, for Miami, they just want to give Tyreek the ball. And, I mean, Achane takes it 80 yards down the field, and Mostert just scored 700 touchdowns. That's got to be positive regression. So, and they brought in a tight end that can cut. I mean, Jonnu Smith, he made Kyle Pitts look like chopped liver. So maybe they have – I mean, he's not going to be what he was last year, but still taking some but yeah, I think touchdowns are key. I love Jalen Waddle's talent. I'm still trying to figure out no Dolphin is going to make this show to make you proud. I got to put one Dolphin in my top 10, but I haven't figured out who it's going to be. Last year it was Tua, and statistically he put up some numbers, but He still wasn't the top fantasy quarterback, but it wasn't a terrible pick.
I like Jalen Waddle. I mean, I've got nothing, but I would like to say I would like to see more involvement. I would like to see him start taking over the number one role. Just like I want to see glimpses of it. I want to see him being that number one guy. But it's going to be hard. It's because you got Tyreek over there, so the coverage is going to be a little different. He should be able to take advantage of a lot of these guys.
That game when Tyreek was down, he got peppered again.
So yeah, you're right.
He needs to be 1B this year. We thought he would be I really thought Smith and Brown, Waddle and Tyreek would be comparable in that they would both be 1A, 1B, but he didn't step into that. He seemed to sort of let Tyreek run, or maybe Tua was just so laser focused on Tyreek because he was just having the season of the seasons till he got hurt. But yeah, here's hoping he gets there. So we'll see where we go. But yeah, this is the next month.
Just so you know, this is kind of I'm so not. I hear a lot of people say it. I'm so not a fan of the 1A, 1B comment.
Oh, really?
I mean, yeah. I mean, not everybody can be a number one on your team. I mean, there is no second prize here. I mean, you're either a 1 or you're the number 2. You might be the number 1 one day, but right now, what's the difference what's the difference being called a B or a 2? Just because you put a 1 in front of it, you're still the second letter in the alphabet, right?
So who's Philly's number 1 receiver?
AJ Brown.
Okay, I thought you were high on Smith. So that's what I was kind of.
I am high on Smith. I love, but as far as the numbers show, I mean, right now AJ Brown is the 1, and Devonta Smith is the 2. Just like in
last year, it was almost AJ Brown was the 1 for the first half, and Smith was 1 for the second half, or nobody was 1, and then everybody was a 3 for the last couple games. So it was terrible. So yeah, I was getting us ahead as I was talking about that, though. We're going to go into a segment that JJ Wang created last year, and that was our top guys. So we are going to go through, and we're just going to name 10 guys either we just like, we think are maybe going to take a step, we have hopes for this year, and we're going to name 10 guys. And at the end of next week's show, we're going to be like, this is our guy, unless we get really adventurous and make you wait another week. We're going to do 5 guys each of us this week, 5 guys each of us next week, and then we'll decide. We go by the seat of our pants. We might make you wait another week just to get some ratings. And also, by the way, thanks everybody. Last week, apparently they liked our Keep Trade Cut. That was our biggest listen in a while. So either football's coming back to people, or we hit a good algorithm. Everybody's like, ooh, I kind of like where they're heading. So whatever it is, keep on like, share, subscribe. If you see the Fantasy Couriers and you're bored, write something nice. Say, hey, JJ Wang looks awfully handsome in his bubble. Or DJ Dub, your hair is flowing. I love it. Or just like, subscribe, or just when we put it up there, my boy Jared, he always shares our posts. So shout out to Jared from Regulators Dynasty League, but he always shares. He's been on our show twice. He always shares us out. So that's how you get on the show, is you share us out like that, do stuff like that to hook us up. So keep it up, and maybe we'll keep going. We'll keep growing. I mean, who knows? The footballers might be looking up to us one day.
Maybe we'll see. The amount of work you put in, I can see it happening
in the summers. So here we go. we have our 5 of our top 10 guys coming up. I don't have any cute fancy drops for all that. I got to get back on the fancy drops. I got my account through my one thing. I don't even need to have my son beat on drums anymore. So maybe I'll have a top guy song. I'll write myself a note. If I have the only desk in America without a pencil, so I have to write my note in crayons. So next week there will be a top guys song that we'll have when we review this week's guys and go into next week. So JJ Wang, give us your first top guy. Well, in no order are we giving them. We're just giving them.
No. So I just love talking about guys that I like. I mean, this is my favorite part of fantasy, just picking some guys that I've been high on for a while, or maybe some changing my mind on. I want to start at wide receiver. I kind of did it a little different than what we had talked about. I went like a top 3 wide receiver and then a top 3 running back. So I mean, not too much.
That's 6 guys today.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. We'll see how it goes. So I went with my first guy. This is probably my favorite guy in the league, and that's Brandon Ayuk from the 49ers. He hasn't got paid yet. He's about to get a whole lot of money, so hopefully he stays with the 49ers. But I think last year he's been slowly progressing into that number 1 role. Deebo Samuel's getting a little older, but he's not really that legitimate wide receiver. This is the same thing we've seen, but we need it from Jalen Waddle that we need out of Brandon Ayuk, the targets. Yeah, I think he only had 105 targets last year. The thing with him, he was just so efficient. I mean, he averaged 17 yards a catch. That's a lot. Does that repeat this year? I don't know. It's going to be tough, but in that offense, it's definitely possible. And I still love the guy, but I still need more targets. I still need him to be at that 130, kind of at the floor. His yards per catch might come down, but maybe his touchdowns go up a little bit. But I think he's set up to be like not the number one option, but I think he's moving up the option board in San Francisco if he stays there.
I mean, he was the most targeted receiver on their team last year.
Yeah.
Because I'm not counting, I don't even know McCaffrey's targets. I didn't even pull those up. I was just looking at.
But I would still say he's probably. I don't know. That's probably.
I'm gonna check it out just out of curiosity. Now that I said that out loud, I mean McCaffrey, receptions. Yeah, McCaffrey was targeted 83 times, and Ayuk had the 114.
Yeah, but it's just the way that offense is ran. I mean, they get Kittle. I mean, but Kittle is so up or down these last couple, like I guess the last 2 years. He'll disappear for like 3 or 4 games and won't even catch a ball. Debo, I mean, I don't know. Debo's just not the same guy that he was when they paid him all that money. So I feel like Ayuk coming into this season, if he signs his new deal, even if he don't, I think he will be like obviously the number one wide receiver option, but I think he could be the guy.
Yeah, it's and did we miss? Was it last week or did Christian McCaffrey's bag of cash come last week?
I think I'm early this week. I think.
So we missed that one. So we'll filter the Brandon Ayuk into that. Like I think Brandon Ayuk, I think he's at his ceiling. I mean, he's still at 1,300. So him and Jalen Waddle are almost identical with like 3 more touchdowns and 2 and more yards per reception. So he's like a stretching Waddle, whereas Waddle was more slants and curls. So I like that comp. That's a good comp. He just had more yards and 3 more touchdowns. So will he take that next step? Is that offense created for him to take the next step?
That's the only issue.
Do they want to pay him? Because they brought in the rookie in the second round. When did we get personnel? Early?
The end of the first, I believe.
In the first round. So maybe they're going to just let him play out and see if this rookie steps up versus giving somebody. I mean, Justin Jefferson just got stupid money. Are they going to do something like that? Wow, we are behind. Did we talk about Jefferson? I got to look these up, man.
We didn't talk Jefferson either, I don't think.
So let's go back to the news segment after your first guy. Christian McCaffrey got paid. Doesn't that hurt Ayuk if he's a 49er? Because this team is basically the Christian McCaffrey show, right?
I don't think it hurts Ayuk. I mean, nothing's really going to change. It's whether or not Ayuk can take over more of the receiving role. Does he start taking more catches from Debo? Does he, Juwan Johnson? Do they start giving him more targets? Especially if they pay him. If they pay him, they should give him probably more targets. Like I said, Kyle Shanahan is very stubborn. It's gonna have to work within his offense. But like I said, I know there's skepticism on Brandon Ayuk. But I don't think it really changes anything in the 49ers offense. It's going to stay the same. Still be based around Christian McCaffrey.
So if we look at McCaffrey got 2-year extension, $24 million. Both of these affect, and he gets 19 a year to be a running back. But I mean, he is like a wide receiver for them. But then you look at the Jefferson, he got the $140 million over 4 years. While you say McCaffrey staying there helps him, does this stupid money for Jefferson hurt the other receivers who think they're going to get his money? The team's going to be like, heck with you. Go play for the Carolina Panthers. They'll give you money because they got it, or the Bears. You know what I mean? Like, will it help or hurt him that just like Jefferson's worth more than any receiver, right? But these guys' egos think they're as good as Jefferson. I mean, I don't think Chase could argue. Some other guys will step up soon, but
I don't know if it's this. I think they were just waiting to see what Justin Jefferson got, so that way they kind of had an idea. But I mean, it's today's NFL. Why can't receivers ask for more money than the last guy? The quarterbacks do it all the time. So I mean, if CeeDee Lamb comes up and says, "Hey, I want this much and this much," I mean, you should have signed him 2 weeks ago if you wanted to get. But I don't know. Who knows? Good for these guys if they're going to get paid all this money.
He's currently the 13th drafted receiver on Fantasy Pros, like draft rankings. Would you rather have Brandon Ayuk? I'm gonna name the 3 guys above him in his tier: Brandon Ayuk or Michael Pittman Jr.
It's funny because Michael Pittman Jr. was my next guy.
Brandon Ayuk or Chris Olave? We'll talk about that then.
Oh, Brandon Ayuk.
Brandon Ayuk or Marvin Harrison Jr.
Oh, I'm definitely taking Marvin Harrison Jr.
Okay, so that's sort of where the line is. So you got him probably roundabouts 10 in the league.
But I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is on a whole nother level than Brandon Ayuk. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the wide receiver 1 in the league. I don't think Brandon Ayuk reaches that.
But he could be a wide receiver. He could be a wide receiver 1, just not the wide receiver 1.
But yeah, I think Marvin Harrison fits in with Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb. I don't think Brandon Ayuk is there.
Yeah, my problem with Ayuk is more I was just snake bitten in younger years, and last year he was tremendous. And for some reason, it's just there's those players that you just get the stink. You love him. I'm just like, he did good. I just won't draft him. I'll let you take him in all our leagues, and you'll be happy, and I'll be happy too because I won't be stung. So I might as well go with. I'll start with the controversy here. I'm gonna start with quarterback. My first guy is one of my favorites. His name is Will Levis. Will Levis is one of my top guys this year. I think that he's fallen into. He was drafted later in the draft. Everybody thought, Will Levis might not play. Malik Willis is going to play. Tannehill's going to play. Levis came in, had a 4-touchdown starting game, and then unfortunately scored 4 touchdowns the rest of the season. But Will Levis was playing, but he has a cannon for an arm. He was throwing to such great receivers. I had it pulled up a second ago. He was throwing his leading receivers last year. He had D-Hop, but then it was like Chig, Chris Moore, Tajee Spears, Nick Westbrook, Traden Burks, Kyle Phillips, Jordan Wesco. Like, it was a who's who of nobodies. He was playing like what Bryce Young was playing. Like, I could put Bryce Young in this spot almost. But I like Will Levis, and I ate a banana for Will Levis. And I've been showing kids the video at school of me eating the banana because we're joking about bananas. Like, watch this. They're like, oh my gosh. But then you go to this year, Will Levis is thrown to DeAndre Hopkins, who's a year older, so obviously probably will step down, but he's a target hog. He's got Calvin Ridley, who got the bank from them. He's got Tyler Boyd in as his wide receiver 3, that is a great spot for Tyler Boyd to be with that cannon arm. Chig is there, who should take another step. 2 receiving running backs and no Derrick Henry. This is no longer the Derrick Henry show, and Will Levis could be kind of like Caleb Williams. Without, he is set up with a cast that if he doesn't do well, it's him. Like, he's not going to be Patrick Mahomes, but he could easily sniff QB1 numbers with this cast of characters because the difference between like QB8 and QB19 is not that much. But I like the start, and I'm riding some Will Levis trains this year.
If you like who you like. I mean, it's not that I don't. It's not that I don't like Will Levis. I mean, I'm not a huge fan. I mean, he was drafted in the 2nd round, so these guys will completely move on from him if given the opportunity if he doesn't play well. So, I mean, that's there. Yes, his team is better. I mean, he's got better receivers to throw to. But I think his upside is more along the lines if he runs for yards. And I feel like he's got to be a Josh Allen type runner in order to be a top 12, but I don't think he has like the high passing number upside. I think they're going to run a lot more. I just don't think the passing yards get there for him to be a top guy. But I mean, a low end QB2, I mean, I can see it. Do I think it'll happen? Probably not.
I'm going crazy. I could put him at 13, 14. That's like Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr territory. 13, 14, 15. That's the non-runners.
But I don't ever see Will Levis ever putting up 4,000 or 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns. Yeah, we'll see. I mean,
maybe I got to save some of it. Maybe I need a bold prediction show. Will Levis prediction. I'm gonna have to jot down.
But I say you like who you like. I mean, I'm not going to criticize you for I mean, there's a lot of people that I like. Probably people are like, I still like Jerry Jeudy. People are going to think I'm stupid, but it's hard to let go of it. It's hard for me to let go, man.
So my second guy, as we will do a snake draft kind of thing here. My second guy was, other than Bijan, my favorite running back coming out last year. I'm going with a little bit of chalk here, but that's Jahmyr Gibbs. I love the Lions. I had to pick a Lion. So I was like, usually I'll pick Amon-Ra. He's one of my favorites. I could go with the tight end, Laporte. Everybody loves him. I mean, I could even go with Goff, who had a great year and got a bag of cash, but I'm going to go with Gibbs because I just like him, and it's almost like he was in the shadow of Bijan, and he was just barely right behind Bijan with someone else toting the ball a whole heck of a lot, and he got some games in where he played without Montgomery. He still had 945 yards and 10 touchdowns, and they're saying he's going to receive more this year receptions. He had 52. So I think he steps it up this year, and I think I could totally see his rushing turning into his receiving and let Montgomery pound a little more, still get a decent rushing number, but more. I think his receiving numbers, I mean, you think of him as a receiving back, and he only had 316 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown. That's going to go up, and I think the rushing probably will it's like what Kamara did when he was really successful. I mean, I think they're a good comp with their role in the offense, but they're different players, different sizes and everything, but different. But I think their roles are very similar. So I think Jahmyr Gibbs, there's not much to argue. He's a stellar player. They might have overdrafted him. I love where he is. I mean, Detroit, maybe they're my Super Bowl pick this year. Maybe they'll be my competition for your 49ers.
I mean, they'll probably be a lot of people's Super Bowl pick. I mean, they're the sexy thing right now. I mean, I feel like they've done everything right. I mean, every move they make seems to be working, kind of minus the Jameson Williams. But there's even positive Jameson Williams talk around this time of the year. But I think Jahmyr Gibbs proved it last year. He's really good given the opportunity. David Montgomery's still going to be part of the offense. I think it pretty much stays the same as it is. I mean, these people can say they're going to do a lot of stuff, give him more targets, more this, more that. He might get a few more, but I don't ever see him breaking, or I don't ever see him getting up to like 70 catches, anything like that. I don't think he's Alvin Kamara. I don't know. He's got to be. I just don't think might not be as good as Alvin Kamara is right now. Of course, we didn't think Alvin Kamara was going to be as good as he was. But yeah, unless he's getting up to the 70 catches, I think this is probably where he's going to be. I think he's probably capped out probably around the RB8 kind of range. But yeah, I love Jahmyr Gibbs. I think he's fantastic, way better than I thought he was going to be.
Get those 20 catches and he's RB4. That's all he needs, really.
20 catches is a lot, though.
Yeah, so that's 1 a game.
Yeah,
it's only 1 more catch a game.
Well, for a running back, it's still. When you're divvying out that many targets. Running backs just don't get targeted, especially if David Montgomery is going to be playing the whole season.
Yeah.
Say David Montgomery doesn't get hurt, that's going to hurt him more. But he's pretty injury prone. But when he is there, he does get a lot of the work.
Yeah. If David Montgomery goes down, Jahmyr Gibbs, he could be running back 3 easily.
Yeah.
I guess where I put him. So
absolutely.
Who's your next guy? Are you going with me?
I'll go to running. I'll go to running back here. This is a guy that I never really used to like, but I started coming around to him, and now I just think he's got 1 more year to be the most dominant player in football, and that's Derrick Henry. So Derrick Henry's been the man, right? Other than those first couple of years when he was sharing the workload, he's been the guy. Last year wasn't like Derrick Henry we're used to per se, but he was still solid. And now he's going to a place where I think this is probably the best destination for any running back in the history of the world. The Baltimore offense, where they don't throw to running backs anyway, but they still produce RB1 numbers. If Gus Bus is providing the kind of numbers that he was, Derrick Henry is 50 times better than Gus Bus. I think Derrick Henry could be not locked in, but set up for like 20 rushing touchdowns here.
That was my question. That was my question for you.
He might not get the yards, but I think he still gets the yards. I think he is the guy. They're going to ride. I think he's got 1 more super productive season in that offense. I think it's going to be insane. And I think this could be a crazy year for Derrick Henry. So I'm going to give it 1 more year.
Derrick Henry, if he throws up just his yardage from last year, 1,167, and adds 8 touchdowns to last year's total.
That is a lot, though.
That's going to kill Lamar. But add that to last year's, give him 20 touchdowns.
Will it, or will it make might make Lamar more efficient? It might kind of like even out because you're so worried about Derrick Henry. especially on those RPOs, I mean, it takes a whole team to stop Derrick Henry. And
Give him Mark
so,
20, give him 20, boom.
I mean, this could be an insane running offense.
And then Mark Andrews will be open in the middle of the field because they're going to be pushing in. He'll just roll right over. Dude, those three guys could have like their career years, and I'm a believer that I think Derrick Henry still has 3 or 4 more years. Like not stellar. Like this year, he could be a top 5 running back with those yards and touchdowns. And then after that, he becomes my comp has always been Jerome Bettis. He'll be Jerome Bettis. Someone else will be in there. He'll be the guy that run bowling balls in the touchdowns, gets 500 yards and 12 touchdowns, and he's your RB3, and you're happy he's a pig in mud. RB2 some weeks. So I think it's I love me some.
I think he's an RB1. I think he's an RB1 like every week.
This year, oh yeah, I hope so. I got him on a couple teams. You've liked so who's your looper? Who's your wraparound?
So my next guy, I'm going to go with Jackson Smith and Jigba out of Seattle. Rookie last year. Now I understand JSN is living off that 1,600-yard season out of Ohio State. So he only had one productive year in college, but he came into the NFL. He was still drafted in the first round. I didn't really expect much last year, knowing that they still had DK Metcalf and what's his name?
Tyler Lockett.
So, but he still produced. I mean, he still almost had 100 targets. I think he had 93 targets. Yeah. But I think he only had 67 catches, so you would like a better catch percentage there. But I think going into this year, now granted, Geno Smith is still the quarterback. I don't
Sam Howell.
Or Sam Howell. So I'm not really a fan of either one of those guys. But I think you start seeing the transformation of Jackson Smith and Jigba being the number one guy. I definitely think he takes targets away from Lockett. And honestly, I think he takes targets away from Metcalf, which actually would help Metcalf. Because I don't think he's like a target monster type receiver. I think he's more of like that big play threat. I think Metcalf is more of the 67 catch guy with like maybe 17 yards per catch, kind of like Ayuk. And then Jackson Smith and Jigba just soaks up the targets. Now, depending on how the offense wants to run, I know it's not a Pete Carroll offense, so they might not run as much. I think the offense might open up a little bit with Jackson Smith and Jigba, like a legit, true wide receiver one that Seattle really hasn't had. And I think 120 to 130 targets this year, I think they could be there, and I think he starts to open it up a little bit.
So I mean, the thing about it is, I love JSN. I hate where JSN is. And we don't know as you said, we don't know what the Seahawks are going to be. I mean, they brought in a defensive coordinator. They brought in the Ravens DC to be their coach, Mike McDonald. So are they going to slow it down and try to beat everybody up, or are they going to let it fly? I mean, they paid Lockett basically 14.5 a year, and there's poison pills in there to get rid of him, but they still gave him a 2-year, $29 million extension. They're not going to let that sit on the bench. DK is still big, giant man DK that could eat us for breakfast. And that's my only worry with JSN is, what is his ceiling? I think in 3 years, JSN, we could argue for a top 7 receiver because of the talent.
You're looking at $14 million for a wide receiver. I mean, that's like wide receiver 3 money. So I think Metcalf kind of slides into the wide receiver 3 role. Metcalf, slides to the number 2, and Jigba just becomes more of like the target guy. I mean, he's going to be getting a lot of the targets. Lockett's still going to have those games where he catches a couple of deep balls and a couple touchdowns. So will I'm pretty sure Metcalf, but I think JSN will be the more consistent receiver.
I mean, it's crazy. Tyler Lockett dead money, if they were to cut him, is like $32 million. I'm on the cap, but it's just great. I thought for sure Lockett was gone. It's almost like, here, we have the money, we're going to pay you because you over exceeded expectations. Like, that he's a guy. He would be on my list of guys I wouldn't draft just because he's killed me so much. Tyler Lockett is like my fantasy enemy because he always kills me. Like, if you
because you got to start him because he's going to have a 25-point game at some point.
No, I don't start him. Whenever I play him, he has a 25-point game, and he just crushes me. Tyler Lockett is like my kryptonite. He kills me. So yeah, my next guy is one of my favorite players. I love that in our auction league, I got him for $1 the first year we had the league. It was before you were in the league, and he's still a top-notch player. So I've went with more top-notch than I usually go. I like to go with some of the sleepers, but he's also slipping in people's thoughts because Mark Andrews was hurt last year. But Mark Andrews, even though he was hurt last year, until he got hurt, Mark Andrews was just scoring touchdowns. He had two touchdown games. He had 61 targets in 10 games, 45 receptions. So for a tight end, he had 500 yards in 10 games. So his yardage wasn't as high as it really should be, and it could be higher, but he was still the number one, number two, and number three receiver, and then Zay Flowers snuck in for Lamar Jackson. And I think adding Derrick Henry, as you talked early, means he's going to move up. He's moving down, interestingly enough, in like drafting rankings. Like, I'm not sure. Like, we're looking Sam Laporta, Travis Kelce, Trey McBride are in front of Mark Andrews. And I could see a world where Mark Andrews ends up higher than all of those. I could see a world where Sam Laporta and Puka Nacua are two guys that I have lots of love and affection for, and I just feel like it's too chalk to pick those guys. But those guys could have had their best season ever last year, easily, and they slip. I hope not, and I want to believe not. But Mark Andrews is the best receiver in Baltimore. So, but he's slipping a lot. And I've heard of him slipping farther than that. I've heard of him slipping behind Kincaid, slipping way down in the draft, but and people jumping on the Pitts train because of, Kirk Cousins being there and he's going to finally be good. And then after that, it's a dumpster fire. It doesn't matter. But still, he's being undervalued when that dude few catches away from being the number one tight end. Like, he was number one tight end for a while until he got hurt last year.
Yeah, so I mean, when he's on the field, he produces. Lamar Jackson loves the guy, and I feel like the way Lamar Jackson plays, I mean, the tight end is his favorite receiver, kind of like Michael Vick back in the day. Like Algie Crumpler killed it all.
Nice pull.
When Michael Vick would roll out, Algie Crumpler would just be there, right?
Yeah.
And I think Mark Andrews is definitely better than Algie Crumpler, and Lamar Jackson is probably better than Michael Vick as far as like throwing goes. So I think, especially now that this offense adds Derrick Henry, you got to be so focused on the run because this is going to be a great running team. He might not get the targets, but I think the efficiency will just be better because I think he'll have a lot more open opportunity. I think the field's going to open up a lot more, and Lamar Jackson he's obviously the first person he's looking to when he drops back is Mark Andrews. So I think he could definitely finish as tight end one very easily.
If you had to put those four guys in order, because I doubt you have a tight end, Laporta, Kelce, McBride, and Andrews, just for this year. We're not talking Dynasty, it's obviously Laporta, McBride, and those two guys. Maybe Andrews might. He's only 28, and if he plays like Kelce, he's got another 8 years. What order would you put them in if you had to rank them 1 through 4?
Yeah, I think that's nice. I think Mark Andrews is probably the best chance at number one right now. I think Laporta's good, but he was a rookie. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen. Mark Andrews has a track record, so you kind of like follow that a little more. If you love Detroit, of course you're going to say Laporta, but I think if they play the whole season, I think the efficiency of this offense is just going to outweigh everything. And I think he's going to. I think this could. I don't want to say this could be one of his better years as far as efficiency goes.
Laporta had 120 targets. Holy crap! That's insane.
Yeah, I mean,
it doesn't happen. But I mean, I love it. Now, I'm with you. Like, as I'm going into rankings, it's going to be: do I follow my heart? Do I follow my head? Do I follow my head and my heart? Like, I could go with you on there. So you got Laporta too, and then Kelce.
I think Laporta too, and then Kelce, and then Trey McBride.
Kelce's the intriguing one. What will they do? Do they want to save him for the playoffs? Are they going to realize?
I think Kelce's kind of scary as far as like fantasy goes. I don't know if his numbers are necessarily gonna be there, but it's Travis Kelce. I mean, what do you do, right?
Yeah, you're going to throw him there. But my next to last guy it's a Hart guy. He's been good, but not great. I mean, the dude has 6 touchdowns in 2 years in the NFL. But then again, Desmond Ritter's been throwing him the ball. Taylor Heineke's been throwing him the ball. I think Bobby Boucher threw him a couple balls the other week. But, it's been a rough go at it for Drake London. He's still he's had 866, 905 yards, and that's pretty good for being on just terrible passing teams where they like to run. They had terrible quarterback play, but he still was getting about 113 targets a year average. Now bring in a quarterback that knows how to manage an offense. Bring in Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix Jr. No, Kirk Cousins. Everybody's really high on Drake London. I'm on that train. I think Drake London and even I'm not maligned Kyle Pitts should have good years because he will open up the field. But I also think that's going to hit the running game. Like I think Kirk Cousins signing there is so amazing for that team that I think he makes that step that we thought he was going to make last year, and jumps up into that talk for a wide receiver one. I mean, Darnell Mooney's not going to do it.
I think it's definitely possible. I mean, if we get the Kirk Cousins that we've gotten for his whole career, then I think absolutely. He's shown glimpses of what he can do. It's like you said, you had Desmond Ridder thrown it to him. I mean, I don't think anybody's really going to be good at that point. But I mean, yeah, he has like the legitimate wide receiver one characteristics. And if he's getting the targets, as proven, when he gets the targets, he produces. And you couldn't ask for a much better quarterback coming to your team if everything is, 100%, in order there with Kirk Cousins. And so far, and everything I've heard, I mean, it sounds good, but nobody's going to say anything bad at this point, whether they're not going to start or not. So, yeah, as long as Kirk Cousins is in there, I think he could definitely be in the wide receiver one territory.
Okay, give us your last two guys.
All right, so the last two, first one, I'm going to go running back here. I'm going to go Zamir White from Oakland. He's one of my favorite. He's one of my favorite guys. Now, he doesn't have a whole lot of competition. I mean, they got Alexander Madison. We've seen what Alexander Madison does. He's been a very good backup running back. He's been a very good number 2 running back. He's definitely not a 1B for all y'all 1A or 1Bs out there. He's definitely the number 2 guy. Now, he doesn't catch a lot of balls, but, I mean, what he is going to do is he's going to get a lot of carries. He's going to get 75% of the carry work here. I mean, he came in at the last 4 games of the season, and then he was averaging like 20 carries a game. He was producing yards, like 5 yards a carry, 4.5 yards, something in that area. So that's very, very good. He did lack the touchdowns. That comes with playing with the Raider offense. I mean, they did have Aiden O'Connell. So you bring in Gardner Minshew. I mean, can open it up a little bit. Maybe Aiden O'Connell gets a little better. But I think he's going to get a lot more touchdowns. Will he be, top 8? Probably not. I mean, maybe we've seen crazier things, but if he's getting that many carries and he does fall into the end zone, I mean, we could definitely be flirting with, top 10 potential here, easy.
Oh, I mean, there's no competition. They gave Josh Jacobs the ball, and obviously, I mean, it's not like they're broke. They could have paid Jacobs what Green Bay paid him. I mean, Jacobs didn't have a top-notch season, but he still was decent last year. And they're like, hey, running backs are a dime a dozen. Let's take the young guy. He should be back to health, ready to go. I mean, he's the size we want, 6 foot, 215, and they're gonna pound it with him. I mean, there's no competition. I mean, the last 4 games, that's what he had to do. If he hadn't done that, those last 4 games, and I mean, he had a 145-yard game on 22 carries. My math might not be right, but that's about 7 yards a carry, give or take. A little bit less, 6 point something. But
yeah, it's just going to rely on touchdowns because he's not a pass catcher. So in order to be, that top elite guy, I mean, I think he only caught 15 passes last year. Now, granted, he only played a lot in the last 4 games. So, I mean, that's bound to come up a little bit just because he's going to be the starter from day one. So, I mean, if we're looking at 30 to 35 catches, I mean, that's still a good receiver right there as far as running back goes. And if we're looking at 250 carries, but like I said, it's going to rely on the touchdowns. If he's getting touchdowns, I think that's where it's at. But touchdowns are fickle.
Yeah, and you got to look at everything else and then hope for touchdowns, right?
Yep.
I like who you.
Right, so my last guy, I'm going to go with another wide receiver. I mentioned him earlier, and that's Michael Pittman Jr. This could actually be my second favorite player in the NFL. I think he's great, but he's just lacked that quarterback play. I mean, he's had Gardner Minshew for a while. I mean, we're not super excited about that. Anything Richardson is now his quarterback. He did pretty well when Richardson was there for the first 4 games. I mean, he's getting a lot of targets. That's what we want, right? I mean, most of the games he's at double digit. He's at double digit targets. Like I said, we're going to need that touchdown number to come up a little bit, and with Anthony Richardson, I think that does help out a lot. I mean, you got, especially when you're down at the goal line, you throw a couple more fades because they're kind of focused on maybe running the ball a little bit more. But I think this coming up is going to be the year Pittman breaks out, and we're going to be looking at probably the best season of his career, because I think the touchdown numbers will jump up considerably. We're looking at wide receiver 13 right now. I think wide receiver 8, wide receiver 7. I think he has that kind of potential. I mean, it's just like with Jonathan Taylor being that running back, and how much are they really going to let Richardson throw? So I know there's definitely a cap on his ceiling.
Yeah, I think his reception and targets numbers can still be high. I mean, 11, 8, 12 targets, 8 receptions, 11 targets, 9 receptions. That's how he started with Richardson. So that means he's going to throw him the ball. The touchdowns are what worries me, because I think Richardson's going to tuck it and run like first-year Lamar. I think that's what's going to keep his ceiling from going to where it can be. But I think his floor is high, especially if you're going PPR. That's 11 points right there. Boom. He could catch 11 1-yard passes, get 11 yards, and you get 11 points. 12 points. But I think his floor is high. So you said wide receiver 8. Would you rather have Michael Pittman or Marvin Harrison Jr.?
I'll take Marvin Harrison pretty much over anybody in the NFL right now.
Devontae Adams. Target hog 2.
I think I want to go Michael Pittman there.
Puka.
I think I'll go Michael Pittman because the Puka still kind of scares me. I want to see it. I want to see it again. But I mean, we're getting close in that. I think that's where Michael Pittman kind of belongs. I would think.
Garrett Wilson.
I'll definitely take Garrett Wilson. I like Garrett
Wilson. So AJ Brown.
I think that one's tricky because Devontae Smith is going to start taking a lot. So I think their numbers are going to be closer than what most people probably think.
I say Pittman, or else he's going to be wide receiver 9.
I'll say Michael Pittman. So like I said, wide receiver 8, wide receiver 8, wide receiver 9. I think between 7 and 10, 7 and 11, I feel like they're all kind of really, really close. It could go either way. But I mean, wide receiver 9. I mean, that's kind of where I see Michael Pittman because, like I said, I think the touchdown is capped by the offense. But man, he gets a lot of targets.
No. So my last guy, 5'10", $165, had a game last year with 5 receptions for 145 yards. That's Tank Dell. I love me some Tank Dell. Tank Dell weighs less than me. He's a little taller than me. He's a beanpole of a man. But the thing that we talked about it earlier on the show, CJ Stroud loves Tank Dell. So until Tank Dell is not a Houston Texan, he's going to be a guy I'm going to think highly of until he gets hurt. Obviously, he's small. And unless he takes hits differently, bulks up, or whatever it is that caused it. It was an ankle, wasn't it, though? An ankle last year? Or foot? Something like that.
He broke his leg or something.
If he can try not to get shot, that would always be good, too. So he's getting over that right now. He was on the field at OTAs. But I mean, even he had some lulls there in between. He had 3 lull games, but then he had 10 targets in one game, 11, 14, 10, 8, 7. So he's getting the targets. Stephon Diggs, everybody's worried about it. You and I have talked. We're sort of indifferent to Diggs. I mean, he's probably going to get the targets. It could hurt Tank, or it could explode C.J. Stroud because I mean, the running backs, what are we doing? Damian Pierce, Joe Mixon, those guys are there. Maybe those guys are there just to make people think Joe Mixon's gonna do something, and they just keep rising. I mean, this is an ascending offense, and Tank Dell Nico could be the guy Nico got paid, but Tank Dell is CJ Stroud's boy. So if Tank Dell is CJ Stroud's boy, I love CJ Stroud. He could be one of my favorite quarterbacks. I'll go with CJ Stroud and take his boy as Tank Dell as my last guy for the day.
Yeah, I mean, I like C.J. Stroud. I mean, he could actually be one of my quarterbacks that I end up choosing. I think there's possibilities where C.J. Stroud could be throwing for 4,300 yards, 4,500 yards. I think he has that kind of capability. And who are they going to throw? I mean, they've got the wide receivers who they throw it to, right? So
yeah.
So it's gonna be Nico Collins. I'm not really sure about Diggs. What does he got left? I mean, I think Nico Collins is kind of not Nico Collins. Tank Dell is kind of that guy. Which way does he go? What they need to do is keep him out of the trenches. He doesn't belong down in. That's how it broke his leg down the goal line, trying to carry it through the middle of 300-pound guys. I don't think that's how he should be used. But I'm not an NFL coach. Let's just keep him on the outside. I think he's going to be productive because, like you said, C.J. Stroud likes him. He wants him to be part of the offense, and he trusts him. So I think I don't know how high he could be. I mean, I don't think he could be a wide receiver 1. But I think he could be definitely flirting, mid wide receiver 2. I mean, he could be flirting with those numbers, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, dude had 7 touchdowns in 10 games.
Yeah.
So he's looking at him. I'm gonna roll with him as long as C.J. Stroud does, and I think if I could pick my dream Super Bowl next year, if it's not Miami, it would be Houston and Detroit. Could you imagine how the NFL would cry and how happy we would be? That would be so
I'd like to see Houston. I'd like to see Houston in the 40. I would actually like that's a good Super Bowl. Houston against the 49ers. I would take Houston over there. I mean, Houston might. I might have to keep bringing out my cup that you got. I mean, they still might be my
back on there without my brother, without Anthony, but Davis Mills.
Yeah, they still might be my second because I like C.J. Stroud. I mean, I think he's a great quarterback.
So there we go. We got our first 5 top guys. I had Levis, Gibbs, Andrews, London, and Dell. JJ Wang had Ayuk, Henry, JSN, Zamir White, and Michael Pittman Jr. 5 more to come next week. Will we zag? Will we zig? Will we just go with the top 5 guys? Maybe it's Christian McCaffrey, Josh Allen, and CJ Stroud. Guess you got to tune in next week.
It could definitely be C.J. Stroud.
I love that guy. I mean, I got to pick a Dolphin. So we get spoiler alert. It'll be one of you got some Dolphins for me to pick next. Do I go with the guy who's going to break the record, or do I go with the cash bag? Maybe I just zag and I take the tight end or one of the running backs, or I don't know. Or just go with Tua and go chop.
I can't wait, man. I'm sitting on the edge of my seat, dude.
Maybe I get the fullback. I love the fullback, man. He's my boy. So anyway, give us some wisdom and listen to everybody else out on their way.
Words of wisdom. I'm going to end this show on a huge disappointment. I'm going to talk about the world's football and the utterly terrible performance that Team USA performed yesterday against Colombia. It ended up being 5-1. I was absolute. So I'm really into soccer lately. I just love me some soccer here the last few months, and I just waiting for. I understand USA is not a soccer country. I get it, but I still feel like we're not 5-1 losses to Colombia. I feel like Colombia has 7 people. I mean, we got like 20 million people in America. I mean, what are we doing? I don't care.
All the Colombians play soccer.
I don't care. So
all of our best athletes play the other sports. That's the problem with all the soccer fans. Our best athletes are not soccer players. We have soccer players are great athletes, but our best athletes are basketball, baseball, everything else. Soccer's like it's moving up, but it's not the big 4 or 5.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, I feel like it's slowly changing a little bit, being more involved in the soccer community.
It's coming up, yeah. But
I know it'll never be like the number 1 sport. There's always going to be the top 3. But I still feel like we should be better than 5-1 losses against Colombia. So as always, trust yourself and trust the process.